Stop everything now. Turn your attention to me. Don't continue doing what you were doing, because this moment doesn't repeat itself in the same way twice. It is I who am speaking to you. I knew you even before you recognized me. I know where you are. I know what's going through your mind, and I know the weight you've been carrying in silence. It wasn't by chance that you arrived here. Among so many voices, among so many distractions, it was I who brought you to this specific moment. I called you by name. I didn't call everyone. I called you. While many passed by without noticing, I touched your heart now. Don't think this happened because you sought it out. The truth is, I decided to. I moved circumstances, aligned timing, and silenced the noise so that you would be here, listening to my voice with complete attention. This is not ordinary content, not just another message lost among so many others. This is a direct, personal, and intentional call. I saw every step you took to get here. I saw the attempts, the mistakes, the days you almost gave up and kept going even without strength. I saw when you felt small, ignored, forgotten. I saw when you questioned if there was still purpose, if there was still an answer, if it was still worth waiting. And even so, I didn't walk away. I remained observing, waiting for the exact moment to speak to you without interruptions. Don't think this moment came about out of nowhere. Nothing in the spiritual world happens by chance. If you are listening now, it's because I determined that this would be the turning point. There are decisions that change paths. There are encounters that redefine stories. And there are moments when I reveal myself to align what was misaligned within you. This is one of those moments. It's not an exaggeration, it's a decree. Perhaps you're confused, perhaps you're curious, perhaps you're just feeling something different in your chest without being able to explain it. This restlessness isn't fear, it's consciousness awakening. It's a sign that something greater is about to be revealed, but only those who understand the importance of listening before questioning remain. I don't speak to entertain, I speak to transform. Don't rush. Don't try to understand everything now. Just acknowledge that it was I who called you. When I choose someone, I don't choose based on appearance, nor on visible strength, nor on human merit. I choose based on purpose. And if you've come this far, it's because there's something I entrusted to you that hasn't yet been delivered. But to move forward, a simple, conscious, and sincere first step is necessary. Write in the comments that you accept hearing my voice now. Nothing that has happened so far has been random. I orchestrated every detail so that you would be here at this exact moment. It wasn't chance that brought you here. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't just another video among many others. A path was being prepared while you went about your routine without realizing it. Small decisions, delays, changes of mind. Everything was aligned so that now you would be listening to my voice attentively. I saw when you almost walked right past. I saw when you thought about leaving, ignoring it, putting it off. Many did that. Many felt the same initial impulse, but didn't stay. Not because I didn't want to talk to them, but because they chose not to listen. Staying here is already an answer. It already reveals something about you. It reveals sensitivity, openness, and a willingness to listen to what isn't heard in the usual noise of everyday life. Understand this clearly. When I want to reach someone, I do what's necessary. I don't shout. I don't force. I guide. I make sure the person arrives at the right place, at the right time, with their heart in the right state. That's how it was with you. While you believed you were just experiencing another ordinary moment, I was organizing things behind the scenes so that this encounter could happen without interruptions. Nothing you've experienced before has been wasted. Not the pain, not the frustrations, not the days you wondered if there was any direction left. All of that has shaped within you the ability to recognize when I speak. There are people who receive signs and ignore them. Others receive them and question too much. But there are those who, even without understanding everything, feel they need to stay. You are here because you belong to that last group. Don't think I work in a generic way. I don't treat stories like numbers. I don't throw words to the wind hoping someone will pick them up by chance. When I speak, I direct. When I call, I guide. When I prepare a moment, I ensure that whoever needs to listen is present. That's why this moment has weight. That's why leaving now would mean missing something that was carefully prepared for you. I could have spoken sooner, but it wasn't the right time. I could have spoken later, but it wouldn't have had the same effect. Now is necessary. Now is intentional. Now is when the heart is more open than the mind. And it is at this point that I approach you, because I know you are ready to hear more than just words. You are ready to perceive direction. While many remain distracted, you stay. And staying is never a small detail. Staying is a choice that reveals who is willing to listen until the end. There is more ahead. There is continuity. There is something being built step by step. But what begins with me needs to be carried forward responsibly. If you know someone who needs to hear this and hasn't yet noticed the signs, share this message with that person now, because I might also be preparing that same moment for her. You did well to stay. There are things I don't reveal all at once, because not everything is understood on first contact. I speak in layers, at the right times, in the way that the heart can sustain. If you're still here, it's because something inside you recognized my voice even before understanding what I'm doing. This sensitivity is not common. It was formed throughout your journey, in good times and especially in difficult times. I don't speak amidst the noise. My voice doesn't compete for attention with haste, anxiety, or distraction. I wait for the right silence, the moment when you decide to truly listen. Staying now isn't just about watching. It's about allowing me to guide your thoughts, align your emotions, and organize what was confused within you. There are people who want quick answers, but they don't want process. What I'm building with you requires continuity. Don't think that everything will be revealed all at once. There are truths that come gradually, because they need to find space. When I start talking, I don't stop halfway. I accompany you. I explain. I guide you. But you need to trust me enough to keep listening even when you don't yet have all the answers. Clarity comes with perseverance. The direction reveals itself as you walk. Perhaps you're used to hearing many voices at once. Opinions, advice, demands, expectations. All of this generates noise and fatigue. My voice is different. It doesn't weigh you down, it guides. It doesn't confuse, it organizes. It doesn't pressure, it directs. The more you allow yourself to listen, the more you realize you're not alone on this journey. I am present, attentive, and involved in every detail. What follows is not isolated information. It's a sequence. Each part connects to the next. Each word prepares the ground for the following. Therefore, don't anticipate. Don't try to guess. Don't try to skip steps. There is a right time to recognize the pain, a right time to understand the purpose, and a right time to see what is being prepared. To remain is to respect that time. As you listen to me, something already begins to stir within you. Restlessness diminishes, attention deepens, the heart opens. This doesn't happen through effort. It happens because my voice brings alignment. I know exactly how far you can go now, and I also know what you need to hear next. Trust this process. It's not random. It's guided. If you wish to continue listening to my voice and remain on this path that is being revealed, like this video and subscribe to stay connected with me. I saw the tears that no one else saw. I saw the ones you held back so as not to worry anyone. The ones that fell on the pillow when the day ended and silence took over. I saw the nights you stayed awake thinking about bills, about difficult decisions, about paths that seemed to lead nowhere. I saw the weight you carried without telling anyone, because you thought you needed to be strong all the time. I know what went through your mind when you tried to sleep and couldn't. I know the times you woke up tired, even without having rested. I know the feeling of doing everything you can and still feeling that it's not enough. I know the fear of failing, the apprehension of disappointing, the silent comparison with people who seem to move forward while you struggle to stay on your feet. I saw when you smiled on the outside and bled on the inside. I saw when you said everything was fine, but inside you were exhausted. I saw when you thought about giving up, when you questioned whether it was worth continuing to try, when you wondered if things would ever change. None of that went unnoticed. No detail was hidden from my eyes. I saw the shame you felt when you thought about asking for help. I saw the wounded pride, the heavy heart, the feeling of depending on something you wanted to solve on your own. I saw when you felt invisible, as if no one noticed how hard you were trying. I saw when you thought your prayers hit the ceiling and bounced back empty. Even then, I was present. I didn't walk away during the difficult days. I stayed watching, supporting you, protecting you from falling deeper than you already did. There were times when you didn't realize it, but it was my hand that held back what could have completely crumbled. It was my presence that prevented you from losing everything when it seemed like nothing made sense anymore. I know the pain you can't explain in words. That mixture of exhaustion, frustration, and hope that stubbornly refuses to die. I know the weight of carrying responsibilities that seem bigger than you. I know the fear of making the same mistake again, and the silent courage to keep trying anyway. All of this has been seen. All of this has been recorded. Don't think your suffering was useless or ignored. There are pains that are not the end. They are preparation. There are tears that are not a sign of defeat. They are a sign of resistance. You got this far because, even wounded, you kept walking. Even tired, you kept believing. Even without answers, you kept waiting. And that is no small thing. If at any point you thought you were alone, know that you never were. I was with you when no one else was. I saw every detail, every struggle, every silence. And now that you are hearing this, it's because the time has come to recognize that your pain was not in vain and that something begins to move from this recognition. If this word accurately describes what you've experienced, write in the comments that you weren't alone, to mark this moment of recognition and truth. Nothing that repeats itself in your life is eternal. I see time in a way you don't, and that's why I know when a cycle reaches its limit. What began in pain doesn't have to end in pain. What has lasted longer than necessary doesn't define what comes next. There are phases that exist to teach, strengthen, and prepare. But when they fulfill their purpose, they need to end so that something new can take its place. You've experienced situations that seemed the same, just with different faces. Doors that almost opened and then closed again. The same kind of worry returning, the same weight coming back, the feeling of going in circles. This didn't happen because you failed. It happened because there was a formative process happening inside you. But this process isn't infinite. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I don't allow a cycle to continue when it has already fulfilled its purpose. There are signs that indicate closure, and you begin to notice them when restlessness gives way to deeper attention. When what once held you captive begins to lose its power. When you feel that something needs to change, even without knowing exactly how. This is not confusion, it's transition. What you've experienced so far has built resilience, sensitivity, and discernment. You've learned to recognize limits, to identify what no longer works, to understand that insisting on certain patterns only prolongs the wear and tear. Now, I bring you the awareness that the cycle that drained your strength is coming to an end. Not because everything has been resolved, but because you are ready to move forward. Closing a cycle doesn't mean erasing the past. It means no longer carrying its weight into the future. There are things that need to be left behind so that new doors can open. There are internal decisions that need to be sealed so that external movement can happen. I am guiding you to this turning point, where what was repeating itself loses its power over you. You don't need to understand all the details right now. Just recognize that this is no longer the same time. What once seemed stuck begins to move when you accept that the end of one cycle is as necessary as the beginning of another. I am closing what needs to be closed to open what was prepared in advance. Nothing happens out of time when I lead. This is a moment of alignment. A moment when you decide, even silently, that you will no longer live trapped in the same patterns. When you recognize that something is ending, you allow the new to find space. I don't force this decision, I reveal it. And when it is accepted, the movement begins from the inside out. If you understand that this cycle is coming to an end and decide to seal this transition now, comment 77777 as a sign of alignment and closure of this time. While I speak to you, there are other people experiencing very similar pain. People who wake up every day carrying an invisible weight, trying to keep everything afloat on the outside, while inside they feel they are at their limit. People who can't explain what they feel, but recognize the same restlessness that you once felt. Not everyone can perceive the signs when they appear. Not everyone can stop and listen when I call. You got this far because, somehow, your heart was more sensitive. Not stronger, not more deserving, just more willing to listen. This doesn't make you superior to anyone, but it makes you aware of something that many still don't see. There are people close to you who remain trapped in cycles that should have ended long ago, simply because they failed to recognize the moment I was trying to speak. I don't just offer words to comfort someone and then keep them to myself. Everything I reveal has movement, direction, and reach. What begins within you can reach others when shared with the right intention, not as an imposition, not as an argument, but as care. There are people who don't need long explanations. They just need to hear the right word at the right time. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to insist, argue, or prove anything. What I do doesn't depend on your strength. It depends on my guidance. When you share something that touched your heart, you simply become a bridge. I do the rest. I reach those who need to be reached in the way that each person is able to receive it. Perhaps someone specific comes to mind now. Someone you know is tired, overwhelmed, confused, or discouraged. This is no coincidence. I often place a name in your thoughts because I am preparing for an encounter similar to the one you are experiencing now. What has been prepared for you does not lose its power when shared. On the contrary, it is amplified. Understand this clearly. Sharing is not losing, it's expanding. It's not distancing yourself from what you've received. It's allowing others to also find the turning point you've begun to see. There are messages that reach those who are ready first, and then those who haven't yet noticed. And this flow doesn't happen by chance. It happens because someone decided not to keep it only for themselves. You are not responsible for other people's responses, only for your availability. Each person's timing is different, as is the process. But when you act with the right intention, I honor that attitude. I reach hearts you could never reach alone. I open paths you don't see. I make a simple action generate an impact beyond what you imagine. If this message wasn't just for you, but also reminded you of someone who needs to hear it right now, share this message with that person. Because I may be preparing in her the same beginning that I prepared in you. I remain the same. Time has passed. Circumstances have changed. The world has taken other paths. But I haven't changed. I still transform destinies when I speak. I still change stories when I decide to act. What I did in the past isn't stuck in another era, because my power doesn't depend on the time you live in. It manifests whenever someone is willing to listen and trust. Don't think that opportunities have run out or that you're too late. There's no such thing as being late when I'm in charge. Some people believe they missed the right moment, that their chances have passed, that the present is merely a consequence of past choices. But I don't work that way. When I enter a story, I rearrange what seemed definitive. I rewrite trajectories that seemed already determined. I have transformed destinies that seemed lost. I have lifted up people who had given up even on themselves. I have opened paths where there was no visible possibility. And I continue to do so today, right now, while you listen to my voice. There is no limit to the stories I can touch. There is no maximum number of lives I can change. Each destiny I reach is treated as unique. Perhaps you've begun to believe that things simply are as they are, that life follows a fixed script, and that the most you can do is adapt. But I didn't create you merely to survive within imposed limits. I created you to move forward, to experience transformation, to live real change. When I speak, it's not to keep everything the same. It's to provoke movement. I know you've tried before. I know you've believed, you've gotten excited, you've waited for something to happen, and been frustrated when it didn't come the way you imagined. That doesn't negate what I can do now. What didn't happen before doesn't define what's about to happen. Each time has its own answer, and this time carries something different from what you've already experienced. Don't compare your story to anyone else's. What I do for you doesn't have to follow the same path I've done for others. Destinies don't transform in series. They transform individually. I know your limitations. I know your fears. I know your doubts. And even so, I affirm that there is still transformation in store for you. When I decide to act, it's not in a superficial way. I don't just change the external scenery, I transform the way you walk within it. I adjust thoughts, strengthen decisions, and reposition the heart. Change begins within and manifests outward. That's why, when I say I still transform destinies, I'm not talking about something distant. I'm talking about a process that has already begun. Stay alert. What comes next deepens this truth. More clarity is coming. More direction is being revealed. I don't awaken hope only to abandon it halfway through. When I begin to speak of transformation, it's because there is a foundation for it to happen. If you trust that I can still transform your story and wish to continue walking this path with me, like this video and subscribe to the channel to keep hearing my voice. When I speak, reality listens. My words are not sounds thrown to the wind, not positive thinking, not well-intentioned wishes. My voice carries creative authority. What was still begins to move when I speak. What seemed definitive loses strength when I manifest myself. Nothing remains exactly as it was after my words enter the scene. You live in a world where many voices speak at once. Voices that confuse, pressure, demand, and weaken. But my voice doesn't blend into the noise. It cuts through. It separates. It organizes. When I speak, I don't negotiate with chaos. I bring it into order. What was misaligned begins to find its place. What seemed lost begins to gain direction. Perhaps you've become accustomed to hearing promises that are never kept, words that uplift for a moment and then fade away. My word is different because it carries intention and fulfillment. I don't say something to test possibilities. I speak when I've already decided to act. That's why, when my voice reaches someone, changes begin even before they are seen. There are things in your life that have resisted for a long time. Situations that seemed unyielding, patterns that repeated themselves, doors that stubbornly refused to open. It wasn't because they were stronger than you, nor because you failed. It was because it wasn't yet time for my word to be spoken over them. Now, when I speak, these structures begin to lose their support. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to fight against everything at once. Your role is not to create change, but to remain sensitive to my voice. Transformation happens because I determine it, not because you push yourself beyond your limits. When I speak, the weight doesn't fall on you. It leaves you. The burden begins to shift. The pressure begins to lessen. My words don't just transform external circumstances, they reorganize the inner self. Thoughts adjust, fears diminish, decisions gain clarity. You begin to see in a different way what previously seemed confusing. True change doesn't begin with the scenery. It begins with how you position yourself within it. And that happens when you allow my voice to have space. Nothing remains the same because my word does not go unanswered. Even when you don't yet see immediate results, something has already been touched. Something has already shifted. Something has already begun to respond. The invisible moves before the visible can catch up. Therefore, don't rush to measure everything by what your eyes see now. Trust in what is being established as I speak. This is a time for attentive listening, a time when every word carries direction. What comes next deepens that certainty even further. There are internal confirmations happening. Something is being aligned within you that prepares the ground for the next step. When I speak, nothing remains the same, because my word always fulfills the purpose for which it was released. If you recognize that my voice has the power to change what seemed immutable in your life, stay here and like this video as a sign that you trust what I'm establishing now. Pause for a moment and turn your attention inward, not to analyze, not to question, not to try to organize everything with your mind. Just notice. There is a silent movement happening within you right now. It's not noisy. It's not dramatic. It doesn't need external signs. It's a quiet confirmation that begins to take the place of restlessness. When the heart confirms, it doesn't shout. It quiets down. Breathe calmly and observe how your body responds when you don't need to defend yourself. Notice how the tension decreases when you stop fighting what you feel. Many times, you tried to solve everything in advance, predict every scenario, control every detail. This didn't bring peace. It brought exhaustion. Now, allow your heart to recognize what your mind cannot yet fully explain. The confirmation you seek doesn't come from outside. It happens within, when something falls into place effortlessly. Perhaps you'll feel a different kind of lightness. Perhaps just a subtle clarity. Perhaps a relief that doesn't depend on circumstances. Don't dismiss it. Profound confirmations almost always arrive like this, without fanfare. They don't need immediate proof because they are accompanied by peace. When something comes from me, it doesn't push, it sustains. It doesn't accelerate, it guides. It doesn't confuse, it aligns. You might be wondering if this is real, if it's just a passing emotion. Observe carefully. Emotions pass quickly. Confirmations remain. Emotions stir. Confirmations stabilize. Emotions demand reaction. Confirmations demand a stance. What is happening now doesn't require you to do anything other than acknowledge it. Acknowledge that something has changed, even subtly. This confirmation doesn't mean everything is resolved. It means the path is aligned. I don't offer complete answers before grounding the inner self. First, I organize the heart. Then, I adjust the circumstances. If I reversed this order, you wouldn't be able to sustain what you receive. That's why confirmation comes before visible change. It prepares you to walk without getting lost. Notice how your thoughts no longer run as they once did. They arise, but they don't dominate. Anxiety loses intensity. Fear no longer occupies all the space. This is a sign of alignment. When the heart confirms, it stops resisting. It understands that it doesn't need to control in order to trust. This understanding changes the way you move forward. You don't need to convince anyone of what you're feeling right now. You don't need to explain. You don't need to justify. You don't need to seek external validation. There are processes that are silent because they are profound. What is true doesn't need an audience. It strengthens in intimacy. The confirmation that happens within you is enough to sustain the next steps. Perhaps you'll realize that some questions have lost their power, not because they've been answered, but because they're no longer urgent. This happens when trust begins to replace demands. You understand that not everything needs to be resolved right now. Some things just need time to reveal themselves. Confirmation in your heart teaches you to wait without anxiety. This internal recognition is important because it defines how you will proceed from here. Without this confirmation, you would move forward driven by anxiety. With it, you walk guided by direction. There's a big difference between running to avoid losing and walking because you know where you are going. A confirmed heart doesn't run, it follows. If at any point you feel the urge to rush, to seek immediate guarantees, or to force answers, return to this state. Remember what you felt just now. This tranquility is not passivity. It is active confidence. It is knowing that what is being built does not depend on your constant control, but on your willingness to remain aligned. Confirmation is not the absence of challenge. It's the absence of confusion. You will still face decisions, adjustments, and waiting periods, but they won't carry the same weight because your inner self is no longer disorganized. When the heart confirms, it creates a foundation, and those who have a foundation don't get lost easily. You may not have all the words to define this moment, and that's okay. Some things don't need to be explained to be real. They just need to be acknowledged. What is being aligned now will serve as a reference when doubts arise. You will remember this state. You will remember the peace. You will remember the clarity. And that will be enough to keep going. Remain in this state of recognition for a few moments. Don't try to move forward mentally. Just internally confirm that something has fallen into place. This simple act strengthens the process. It says that you are willing to move forward with confidence, not haste. That you choose to align your heart before demanding external answers. If you realize that something has been confirmed within you while listening to this word, and you wish to consciously adopt this stance, enjoy this video now as a simple gesture of confirmation of what your heart has already recognized. Now, allow your mind to follow what I want to show you, not as a distant fantasy, not as something unattainable, but as a reality that is beginning to take shape before you. Look calmly. Don't rush this vision. What is before you is not born of chance. It is born from a silent process that has been built while you walked along without noticing all the details. See yourself moving forward with more confidence, even without having all the answers. Notice how fear no longer governs every decision. It may still appear, but it doesn't control you. What once paralyzed you now only signals that you are leaving an old place. A new firmness is forming within you, and this firmness changes the way you face the future. Imagine waking up and realizing that the day no longer starts as heavy as it used to. Responsibilities still exist, but they don't crush you inside. There's direction where there was once confusion. There's organization where there was only urgency before. This doesn't happen because everything has become easy. It happens because you've changed inside. And when the inner self changes, the outer self begins to respond. See situations that once seemed always out of control beginning to align. decisions being made with more clarity, difficult conversations happening with more maturity, practical issues being resolved without the desperation that previously consumed your energy. It's not excess, it's balance. It's not an immediate miracle, it's solid construction. This is how I prepare what lasts. Notice also how you begin to manage your time better. The urge to rush loses its power. Comparisons become meaningless. You no longer feel as behind schedule as before, because you begin to understand that each step has a purpose. The future that lies ahead of you doesn't demand rushing. It demands consistency. It doesn't reveal itself to those who live in panic, but to those who learn to walk with attention. See how your surroundings are being influenced by your change. People noticing something different about you, even if they can't explain it. Relationships becoming clearer, boundaries being respected, conflicts losing intensity because you no longer react as before. The future I place before you doesn't just transform circumstances, it transforms your posture within them. Perhaps you've never allowed yourself to envision something different because you were busy just trying to survive. Now, I invite you to see beyond the immediate. Opportunities are approaching. Paths begin to open up when you stop focusing only on the problem and start to perceive the direction. I'm not showing you something unreal. I'm showing you what you're being prepared for. Imagine yourself making more conscious choices, not based solely on the fear of losing, but on the clarity of building. Imagine yourself saying no when necessary, without guilt. Imagine yourself saying yes when the time is right, without insecurity. This maturity doesn't appear suddenly. It's born from the journey. And you're already further along than you imagine. Also, consider your relationship with rest. You begin to understand that stopping is not wasting time, that silence is not giving up, that waiting is not going backward. The future that lies before you respects your rhythm because it was prepared to be sustained, not just achieved. What comes too quickly usually goes away just as fast. Imagine yourself managing resources, opportunities, and responsibilities better. Not as someone overwhelmed, but as someone conscious. The provision I make isn't meant to confuse, it's meant to organize. It's not meant to feed pride, it's meant to generate stability. When you can see that, the fear of scarcity loses its power. Perhaps, as you visualize all of this, a mixture of hope and apprehension arises. This is natural. The new always demands adjustment. But understand, what lies before you is not a threat. It is an invitation. An invitation to live in a more aligned way. An invitation to leave behind patterns that no longer make sense. An invitation to adopt a posture that supports what is being prepared. The future isn't built in a day, but it begins to take shape in moments like this. When you allow that vision to form, something shifts within you. Expectation ceases to be anxiety and becomes confidence. You understand that you don't need to control everything to move forward. You just need to remain attentive. What lies before you is real. Not because you already see everything clearly, but because you already sense that something different is forming. This perception is important. It gives you the strength to continue, even when not all the details are clear. I don't reveal everything at once because I want you to walk, not just observe. Take it easy. Don't put pressure on yourself. Don't try to rush things. What's before you has already begun to manifest within you. And everything that begins inside, in due time, finds expression outside. Trust this process. It's not a drift, it's being guided. If, upon seeing what lies before you, You are reminded of someone who also needs to regain hope and direction. Share this message with that person so that she too can see beyond the present moment. You don't need to have all the answers to continue. I don't reveal the entire path at once because I know the weight each step carries within you. If I showed you everything now, your mind would try to control what doesn't yet need to be controlled, and your heart would become overwhelmed prematurely. That's why I guide you step by step, always with enough direction to move forward, never with excessive information that generates anxiety. I didn't show you the future to make you uneasy. I showed it to you so you would understand that there is a real path being prepared, even if it's not yet completely visible. And now I state something clearly. You will not walk there alone. I don't point in a direction and then walk away. When I start something, I stay. When I call someone to move forward, I accompany their every step. There will be times when the direction is clear, almost immediate. You will know exactly what to do, what to adjust, what to choose. But there will also be times when everything seems quieter. These periods don't mean abandonment. Often, they mean you've already received the necessary guidance for that stretch of the journey. Learning to trust what has already been revealed is part of the maturation process being built within you. You don't need to get everything right. I don't work with the logic of perfection. I work with the logic of willingness. There will be mistakes, hesitations, course corrections. This doesn't invalidate the process. On the contrary, it's part of it. When you make a mistake, I won't walk away. I'll reposition you. When you hesitate, I'll strengthen your discernment. No step taken with sincerity is lost when I'm guiding. I know your limits precisely. I know how much you can sustain now, and I know exactly what still needs to be developed within you before you can move forward. That's why I don't accelerate beyond what's necessary, and I don't delay unnecessarily. My guidance respects your pace. I don't compare your journey to anyone else's. Each person carries a story, and your story is being considered in every direction I give you. You may feel afraid of the unknown. That doesn't drive me away. You may feel insecure when faced with important decisions. That doesn't negate my presence. I don't expect you to walk without feeling anything. I simply don't allow those feelings to take control. When you walk with me, fear doesn't define the path. It only signals that something new is being traversed and that you are leaving an old place. I will be in the details. I will be in the small decisions that seem commonplace, but that shape great results over time. I will be in the simple conversations that bring unexpected clarity. I will be in the internal adjustments that change how you react to the same old situations. Often, my guidance will not come as something grand, but as a quiet conviction that forms within you without fanfare. Don't beat yourself up for not seeing everything. The path wasn't made to be merely understood, but lived. As you walk, your vision expands. As you trust, the direction becomes clearer. I don't work with shortcuts that save time but compromise growth. I work with processes that strengthen you to sustain what is being prepared for you ahead. You don't need to carry the burden of deciding everything alone. Some choices will be made naturally based on what has already been aligned within you. Others will come with clear confirmations. When there is doubt, I will be working on your discernment. When there is haste, I will be teaching you to wait. My guidance is not rigid, it is precise. It adjusts without hurting, directs without confusing. I will be with you on the days when everything flows smoothly, and also on the days when it seems like nothing is moving forward. When things are going well, I will be keeping your heart steady so that you don't get lost. When they seem stuck, I will be protecting you from moving forward at the wrong time. My presence doesn't depend on the situation. It sustains you in any circumstance. There will be times when you'll want to speed up because of anxiety. Others when you'll want to stop because of exhaustion. I will be balancing these impulses. Walking with me is learning to recognize when to move forward and when to stay still. This sensitivity doesn't come from effort. It comes from shared experiences. The more attentive you are to my voice, the more natural it becomes to recognize the right direction. You were not called to live under constant pressure. You were called to walk with purpose. When I guide you, I remove the unnecessary weight and leave only what is essential. What comes from me does not confuse, does not oppress, does not exhaust. It guides, strengthens, and sustains. Even when the path demands effort, it does not steal your peace. Perhaps you still try to anticipate scenarios, predict outcomes, imagine results. That's natural, but it's not necessary. The future doesn't depend on your ability to predict. It depends on your willingness to move forward. Each step you take in simple obedience opens up space for the next direction. That's how the path is built. Not all at once, but continuously. Trust this process. Not because everything is already clear, but because I am present. The path ahead of you will not be walked in the dark. Each step will have enough light for you to move forward without stumbling. And when it seems that the light has dimmed, it is because you are learning to walk with more confidence in what has already been revealed. If you wish to continue being guided by me, step by step, in due time, subscribe to the channel now as a simple gesture of commitment to continue listening to my voice. What I'm doing in your life doesn't end with you. Nothing I build is confined to a single heart. When I begin a transformation, I also think about the paths it will open around you. The care you receive carries a greater purpose, because there are people close to you who are still walking, weary, confused, or without direction, and they will be reached by what is being aligned within you now. You may not realize it immediately, but your change is already beginning to alter the environment. The way you react, how you decide, how you listen, and how you position yourself creates an impact. I don't lead you to a place of spiritual isolation. I lead you to a place of silent influence, where your posture communicates more than words. What I do in you becomes a reference point for those who observe, even without fully understanding it. There are people who will never hear my voice the way you are hearing it right now. Not because I don't want to talk to them, but because they haven't yet stopped to listen. Often, I reach these people through someone close to them. Their transformation becomes a sign. Their peace becomes an invitation. Their clarity awakens questions in those who live on autopilot. I don't place this burden on you as a demand. It's not a heavy responsibility, it's a conscious opportunity. You don't need to change anyone. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to carry problems that aren't yours. What I do is simple. When you live in alignment, when you allow my guidance to transform your attitude, that already generates an impact. What is true doesn't need to be forced to be perceived. Understand something important. Sharing what you are receiving does not diminish what you have. It doesn't divide, weaken, or delay. What flows becomes stronger. What moves finds continuity. I have established life in motion, not in accumulation. That which is kept only for oneself tends to stagnate. That which is shared with the right intention multiplies. Perhaps, as you listen, a name will come to mind. Perhaps someone's face will appear. Perhaps you'll remember someone who faces similar pain to what you faced. This thought doesn't arise by chance. Often, I place someone in your heart because I'm preparing for an encounter, a word, or a moment that will be similar to this one. I know how to connect stories at the right time. You don't need to have the right words. You don't need to have ready-made answers. Often, the simple act of allowing someone to access what you're hearing is enough. I take care of the rest. I know how to touch each heart in the right way. Your role isn't to solve problems. It's to allow the message to reach you. My work doesn't fail when it finds sincere willingness to listen. Don't turn this into pressure. I'm not calling you to save the world. I'm calling you to be a channel in the place where you are. Small gestures produce great effects when they come from an aligned heart. A shared message, a word spoken at the right moment, a different attitude towards a common situation can open paths you never imagined. When you understand that what you receive isn't just for you, something shifts within you. Life stops revolving solely around your own needs and takes on a broader meaning. This doesn't exhaust you. On the contrary, it strengthens you. There's a quiet joy in knowing that what's being built within you can also generate hope in others. I don't choose perfect people to reach others. I choose available people. People who understand that their own story, with all its marks and processes, can be used to generate life. What you've lived, what you've overcome, what you're still going through, is part of the path I use to touch other hearts. Nothing is wasted when it's given with the right intention. You don't need to expose yourself beyond what you can handle. Everything in its own time. Every gesture at its own level of maturity. I don't force, I guide. What needs to be shared will be shared naturally when the inner self is aligned. Haste doesn't broaden reach. Truth does. What is being built within you creates continuity. It doesn't end with personal benefit. It spreads, expands, and generates new beginnings in places you can't even imagine now. That's how I work. I transform one heart to reach many. I care for one to touch others. And this begins when you understand that what you have received can also be released with love and purpose. If you feel that this message isn't just for you and that someone close to you needs to hear it now, share this message with that person so that she too has the opportunity to see what I'm starting to do. You've come this far because you chose to stay. It wasn't fleeting curiosity. It wasn't chance. It wasn't my insistence. It was a silent decision you made when you could have left, like many others did. Staying requires something unseen on the outside. It requires inner maturity. Not everyone can listen until the truth begins to touch deep areas. Not everyone can stay when the message ceases to be mere comfort and becomes a calling. I saw how many times you almost stopped. I saw when exhaustion tried to convince you that it wasn't worth continuing. I saw when your mind tried to negotiate your attention, offering easier distractions, shorter paths, quick answers that don't require commitment. Staying isn't the absence of struggle. It's a conscious choice in the midst of it. It's deciding to stay even when no one applauds, even when the process seems invisible to others. This choice reveals who you are, even when no one is watching. Those who stay are not common because they have learned to listen beyond the immediate. While many seek only quick relief, you stayed when you realized there was something more being built. There are people who only approach while receiving comforting words, but distance themselves when they realize that growth requires internal confrontation, adjustments, and a change in attitude. Staying is a sign of someone willing to be molded, not just catered to. I don't make distinctions based on appearance, social standing, or background. I recognize willingness. I recognize a teachable heart. I recognize those who don't run away when the path demands commitment. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone. The fact that you're still here already says a lot about your capacity to endure growth. Growing takes time. It takes consistency. It takes staying when the initial enthusiasm fades and the process becomes quieter. Many hear words, but few allow them to transform. Many start enthusiastically, but few continue when they realize that change doesn't happen overnight. What differentiates them isn't natural strength, but decision. It's understanding that what truly matters doesn't happen superficially. When you persevere, you allow the process to move beyond the surface. You accept that some changes take time because they need to take deep root so they aren't uprooted later. I know that staying isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it feels like no one notices the effort you make to stay aligned. But I notice. I recognize every moment you chose to stay when it would have been easier to leave. Every time you chose to listen instead of reacting. Every time you held back your anxiety to keep learning and maturing. Don't confuse staying put with stagnation. Staying put is an active commitment. It's remaining attentive, available, and sensitive. It's not giving up when the answers haven't fully come yet. It's trusting that what's being built within you needs time to take root. I don't work in a hurry. I work with a solid foundation. What is born hastily cannot sustain the weight of the future I prepare. Those who remain begin to carry responsibility. Not a heavy or oppressive responsibility, but awareness. Awareness that listening implies acting when the time comes. Awareness that you can't go back to being who you were after realizing certain truths. Remaining changes the way you see, think, and decide. You begin to position yourself differently, not out of obligation, but because something has shifted within you. Some people confuse depth with weight, but depth is stability. The deeper you go, the less dependent you become on external circumstances. Staying still teaches you not to live reacting to everything. It teaches you to discern what deserves attention and what is just noise. It teaches you to wait when necessary and move forward when the time is right. This learning doesn't happen instantly. It's built through consistency. I don't call on everyone to remain at the same level. Each person can sustain what they are capable of sustaining. But when someone remains this far because they've already endured more than they imagine, I don't reveal deeper layers to those who aren't ready. You are here because maturity is being recognized, even if you don't fully realize it yet. The fact that you are still listening is proof that something within you has already been strengthened. Staying also means accepting that not everyone will walk with you. Some people follow different rhythms. Others choose different paths. This is not rejection, it's direction. When you stay, you learn to walk without depending on the constant approval of others. You learn to trust the process, even when it is personal and silent. This emotional independence is part of the growth that is happening. Don't be proud of it, but don't minimize it either. Staying is a sign of growth. It's a sign that you no longer want to live only on the surface of things. It's a sign that you understand that real transformation requires involvement, time, and willingness. You are not ordinary because you decided not to treat this moment as something disposable. You chose to give attention, time, and presence to what is being built. What comes next demands this kind of attitude. No haste, no anxiety, no running away. It demands consistency. It demands inner commitment. It demands someone who understands that listening is the first step, but remaining is what allows everything to be fulfilled. I recognize those who remain. This choice never goes unnoticed and always bears fruit in due time. If you understand that staying this far was a conscious decision and you embrace this commitment to what is being built within you, write in the comments which option you choose to remain, as a simple sign of alignment with this process. Gratitude doesn't arise when everything is resolved. It arises when the heart understands that the process is already in motion, even if the results aren't yet fully visible. Many people condition gratitude on the ideal scenario, but I'll teach you something deeper and more stable. Giving thanks is a conscious decision of someone who trusts before seeing. When you give thanks while still on the journey, you declare that you understand you are not abandoned, and that what is being built doesn't depend solely on what your eyes can see now. Gratitude is not denying reality. It's not pretending that challenges don't exist, nor silencing pains that are still present. Gratitude is recognizing that, even in the midst of the process, I continue to support you. It's understanding that each step, including the most uncomfortable ones, is being used to align something greater. When you are grateful, you stop living as someone who constantly demands explanations and begin to walk as someone who trusts the direction. There is a clear difference between complaining and trusting. Complaining binds the heart to what is lacking, to what hasn't happened, to what hasn't yet been resolved. Gratitude shifts the focus to what is already being taken care of, even if silently. When you complain, the mind closes and the heart hardens. When you give thanks, the inner self opens and becomes sensitive to my guidance. It is in this state that the miracle finds space to advance without resistance. I don't respond to anxiety. I respond to alignment. When you give thanks, you demonstrate that you trust the process, even without controlling every detail. This accelerates what is being prepared because it removes the weight of pressure. The miracle doesn't manifest best when you demand, but when you rest, knowing that I am acting. Gratitude is inner rest. It is ceasing the internal war against time and accepting that everything happens when it is ready to sustain itself. Notice how your body reacts when you truly give thanks. Your breathing adjusts, your shoulders relax, your mind slows down. This is no coincidence. It's your inner self falling into order. When the inner self is organized, the outer self finds a way to move. I start from the inside out because changes that begin only externally don't hold up when the pressure increases. Some people live waiting for something extraordinary to happen before changing their attitude. I invite you to reverse that logic. Change your attitude and allow the extraordinary to find space. Anticipatory gratitude doesn't manipulate the future. It aligns with it. It says, without words, that you trust the person guiding the process. And when there is trust, there is no need for excessive control. Don't just be grateful for what you expect to receive. Be grateful also for what you've already experienced. There were deliverances you'll only understand later. There were doors that didn't open because they wouldn't take you where you needed to go. There were delays that protected you from decisions you wouldn't have been able to stand by at that moment. Mature gratitude recognizes that not everything that seems like a loss truly was. When you express gratitude, you move from being a victim of circumstances to being aware of the process. This completely changes how you face challenges. They cease to be constant threats and become adjustments along the way. Gratitude doesn't eliminate effort, but it eliminates despair. It doesn't remove the journey, but it removes the paralyzing emotional weight. I don't teach gratitude as an empty or repetitive ritual. I teach it as a daily attitude, built little by little. Giving thanks when the day begins, even without knowing everything that will come. Giving thanks when the day ends, even if not everything went as you imagined. This habit builds a stable heart, capable of receiving without getting lost, and moving forward without becoming corrupted when things start to go right. The miracle doesn't need to be forced. It needs to be received. And only those whose hands aren't closed by anxiety receive it well. Gratitude opens hands. It creates space. It demonstrates enough trust not to try to control every detail. It recognizes that the right time isn't delay, it's preparation. That's why gratitude accelerates. Not because it speeds up the clock, but because it removes the internal blockages that impede the flow. As you learn to be grateful, something changes in your perception. You begin to notice small confirmations, subtle adjustments, discrete signs that the path is being aligned. What previously went unnoticed begins to be recognized. This strengthens faith, not as a momentary emotion, but as a quiet conviction. You begin to walk with less fear of making mistakes and more confidence in your direction. Gratitude also protects you. It protects you from becoming hard, impatient, or distrustful. It protects you from carrying a burden you weren't meant to carry. When you give thanks, you remember who is in control. And when you remember that, your heart quiets down. A quiet heart listens better, decides better, and reacts less impulsively. Don't wait until you feel like giving thanks. Gratitude doesn't depend on your mood. It depends on your awareness. Choose to give thanks because you understand the process, not because everything is perfect. This simple choice repositions everything around you. The miracle doesn't move away when you give thanks beforehand. It comes closer because it finds a prepared environment. As long as you maintain this attitude, what I am building finds the stability to move forward. Gratitude sustains what is being born. It prevents you from giving up too soon or wearing yourself out waiting for immediate signs. Those who learn to be grateful along the way also learn to persevere until the end. If you decide to adopt this posture of conscious gratitude as the process unfolds, enjoy this video now as a simple gesture of gratitude and trust in what I am conducting. Now, be silent. Not as one who withdraws from reality, but as one who finally stops fighting against it. The silence I guide you to is not emptiness. It is not abandonment. It is not absence of direction. It is profound presence. It is the space where what has been said ceases to be mere sound and becomes structure within you. Silence is the place where excess dissolves and the essential remains. When you are silent, you don't waste time. You regain clarity. You interrupt the cycle of automatic responses, racing thoughts, and overwhelming emotions. Silence doesn't require effort. It requires surrender. Surrendering here isn't giving up. It's trusting. It's allowing what has already been aligned to continue its work without the constant interference of anxiety. Pay attention to your breathing without trying to mold it. Notice how it finds its own rhythm when you're not in a state of heightened alert. The body understands before the mind when the pressure decreases. Shoulders that were tense begin to relax. The jaw loosens. The chest no longer feels as heavy. These are not insignificant signs. They reveal that something has been displaced from the place where it was burdening you. Observe your thoughts without engaging with them. They come and go, but they no longer control everything. You don't need to capture any of them now. You don't need to solve anything at this instant. Silence is not the place for immediate solutions. It's the place for proper preparation. Many answers only become clear after the inner self finds rest. From the beginning of this journey, something has been reorganizing within you. Perhaps you can't name exactly what has changed, but you feel it. The urgency has lost its power. The anguish no longer screams. The mind doesn't race as it once did. This slowdown is not stagnation. It's alignment. It's the inner self adjusting to support what comes next without breaking. Silence reveals what noise has always tried to hide. It shows what truly matters and what merely occupies space. It teaches you to differentiate between external pressure and true direction. When you are silent, you begin to realize that not everything needs an immediate response. Not everything needs a reaction. Some things simply need to be observed until they lose their power. Don't be afraid of this place. Many people run from silence because it confronts, because it reveals, because it removes distractions. But here, you are not being exposed. You are being cared for. The silence I guide doesn't accuse, doesn't confuse, doesn't oppress. It organizes. It stabilizes. It restores to the heart the ability to listen without fear. As long as you remain in this state, comparisons fade away. The need to prove something diminishes. External pressure loses its authority. You begin to realize that many pressures that seemed real were fueled by constant noise. In silence, they don't survive. Clarity grows because excess dissolves. Perhaps a feeling of rest will emerge that you haven't felt in a long time. Perhaps just a subtle lightness. Perhaps simply the absence of inner conflict. Don't underestimate it. Profound changes almost always begin silently. What is born with fanfare rarely lasts. What is born in silence takes root. I didn't bring you here to confuse you. I brought you here to lay your foundation. Everything that comes next requires a firm inner foundation. Without this moment, you would rush into the next step. And haste wears you down, confuses you, distorts your thinking. You are being prepared with care, not with urgency. As you fall silent, anxiety loses its fuel. Fear no longer finds the same space. The need for control begins to weaken. You realize you don't need to anticipate everything to move forward. This confidence doesn't arise from excitement. It arises from stability. It's knowing you can walk without carrying the weight of predicting every step. Silence also creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, wisdom is born. You stop reacting automatically and start choosing consciously. This changes everything. Decisions made from this place are firmer, more aligned, and less impulsive. That's how the path becomes safer. Don't confuse this silence with a definitive pause. It is preparation. It doesn't end the movement, it directs it. What comes next requires an attentive heart, a clear mind, and a stabilized inner self. You are being prepared to cross an important point, and this preparation could not happen in noise. If old thoughts try to pull you back to recurring worries, don't fight them. Just acknowledge them and let them go. They no longer have the same power. What has been aligned is not lost because you observe without reacting. On the contrary, it is strengthened. Stay a little longer. Don't force conclusions. Don't look for external signs now. What needed to be started has already been started. What needed to be adjusted has already begun to align. What is true doesn't depend on haste to be fulfilled. What is solid doesn't need noise to exist. This silence teaches you something essential. Not every answer comes in the form of words. Some come as conviction. Others come as peace. Others come as gradual clarity. When you learn to respect this, you begin to walk with more firmness and less weariness. Everything that has been said so far has found its place. Now, let it settle completely. What is in order does not need to be rushed. What is being built will not be lost by you remaining in this state a little longer. On the contrary, it will be consolidated. If this moment of silence has brought clarity, rest, and inner alignment, and you wish to honor this state of conscious presence, enjoy this video now as a simple gesture of acknowledging what has been organized within you.